The Midnight Disappearance. Welcome back to Ghost Vibes. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, carrying 239 passengers and crew, took off from Kuala Lumpur bound for Beijing. It was a routine flight, a journey of a few hours. Yet somewhere over the South China Sea, MH370 performed the perfect vanishing act. The disappearance was instantaneous and total. At 1:21 a.m. local time, the aircraft's transponder, which communicates with air traffic control, simply went silent. There was no distress call, no emergency signal, and no report of mechanical failure. The plane, a massive Boeing 777, disappeared from civilian radar as if it had simply dissolved into the night sky. The initial confusion quickly gave way to alarm. Search and rescue operations began immediately, initially focused on the last known location near the transition point between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace. But this search yielded nothing. The vast ocean offered no trace of wreckage, no oil slick, and no life rafts. The first clue that something deeply deliberate had occurred came from military radar. Analysis showed that after the transponder went dark, the plane did not crash. Instead, it made a sharp, deliberate turn to the west, recrossing the Malay Peninsula and flew directly over Malaysia. This maneuver was not random. It required manual input and intimate knowledge of the Boeing 777's navigation systems. The world realized they were not dealing with an accident. They were dealing with a ghost flight, hijacked or deliberately steered into the unknown by a phantom hand. The enigma of MH370 had just begun, the silent turn and the bizarre communication. The military radar confirmation that MH370 had turned west was just the beginning of the technical mystery. Investigators soon discovered that not only had the transponder been intentionally disabled, but another critical communication system, the Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, ACARS, had also been turned off. ACARS automatically transmits technical data about the plane's status. Turning it off required specific expert knowledge. This suggested an individual or individuals were systematically isolating the aircraft from the world. However, the plane still had one last tether to civilization, the Inmarsat satellite communication system. Even after everything else was manually shut down, the system continued to exchange faint automated handshakes or pings with a single Inmarsat satellite located over the Indian Ocean. This was the system simply checking if the plane was still connected to the network. Crucially, these pings did not contain location data, but they did contain timing data. By analyzing the exact time delay and the frequency shift or Doppler effect of the signals, engineers could calculate the plane's approximate distance and arc from the satellite at 7 specific moments in time after it vanished from radar. The final silent ping was recorded at 8:19 a.m., over 7 hours after the plane disappeared from radar. This data placed the plane far to the south, deep over the vast hostile waters of the southern Indian Ocean. This discovery fundamentally redefined the search area. It showed that MH370 had continued flying for hours, potentially on autopilot until it presumably ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean in one of the most remote, unexplored regions on Earth. The silent turn and the telltale pings transformed the mystery from a search near Southeast Asia into a hunt across the oceanic abyss. The southern arc of silence and the hunt begins. The analysis of the Inmarsat pings defined a narrow curved boundary known as the 7th arc, the line where MH370 made its final satellite communication. This arc stretched across thousands of miles of the southern Indian Ocean, an area notorious for its harsh weather and extreme depths. The initial international search effort that followed was monumental, becoming the largest and most expensive in aviation history. Countries including Australia, Malaysia, and China pooled resources, deploying sophisticated sonar equipment, autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, and surface vessels. The scale of the task was daunting. They were searching a vast, featureless seabed with depths exceeding 6,000 meters. Despite months and years of continuous effort, the initial phases of the search yielded virtually nothing. The pressure on the investigative teams was immense. Every sonar image, every piece of debris, and every underwater anomaly had to be scrutinized against the desperate hopes of the victims' families. False alarms were frequent, raising hopes only to crush them moments later. The search was complicated by the deep uncertainty regarding the plane's end-of-flight scenario. Did the pilot deliberately crash the plane? Did the aircraft descend in a controlled glide after running out of fuel? Or did it plunge violently? Different crash scenarios dictated different debris patterns and spread, making the task of modeling the final resting place nearly impossible. This vast empty expanse of water became the perfect symbol for the MH370 Enigma. The ocean had swallowed the evidence, leaving the world with only the cold hard science of the satellite data and the chilling question of what, or who, had driven the massive Boeing 757 to its final, isolated destination. The Flaperon, the first glimmer of evidence. After more than 500 days of fruitless searching and a rising sense of hopelessness among the families and investigators, the silence was finally broken, thousands of miles away from the initial search area. In July 2015, a barnacle-encrusted piece of wreckage was discovered on the shores of Réunion Island, a small French territory in the western Indian Ocean. The object was immediately identified as a Flaperon, a small key part of a Boeing 757 wing. Forensic examination confirmed the part's identification number. It definitively belonged to MH370. This was the first and most important physical evidence confirming that the plane had indeed crashed into the Indian Ocean. The discovery immediately validated the Inmarsat data, which had predicted the plane's trajectory over the southern Indian Ocean. Oceanographers used sophisticated drift modeling to trace the Flaperon's journey, confirming that ocean currents could have carried the debris from the 7th Arc crash zone to Réunion Island over the course of 16 months. The Flaperon discovery reignited the search efforts, but it also introduced a new crucial piece of ambiguity: the nature of the crash. Experts studied the trailing edge of the Flaperon, searching for clues. If the Flaperon was fully retracted, it would suggest the plane was in a controlled glide or had crashed gently after running out of fuel. If it was extended, it might suggest a manual attempt to land or a rapid, violent impact. The interpretation of the damage became a major point of debate among the experts, fueling conflicting theories about the pilot's final actions. Following this initial find, over 30 other pieces of debris suspected to be from MH370 have washed ashore on the coasts of South Africa, Mozambique, and Tanzania, reinforcing the devastating reality of the crash, yet providing frustratingly few answers about why it crashed. The hunt for the main wreckage continued to be a hunt for a single answer, locked inside the cockpit's final moments. The captain's shadow, Zaharie Ahmad Shah. As the physical search proved fruitless, the investigation turned sharply inward, focusing on the two most powerful people aboard the aircraft, the pilots. Attention quickly centered on the captain, Zaharie Ahmad Shah. Captain Shah was a highly experienced pilot, deeply respected within the aviation community, and known for his passion for flying. However, investigators soon uncovered several deeply troubling circumstantial details that cast a shadow over his final flight. Firstly, Shah had an elaborate home flight simulator. Crucially, forensic analysis of the simulator's hard drive, recovered after the disappearance, revealed that Shah had practiced a route remarkably similar to the one MH370 is believed to have taken, a path deep into the remote southern Indian Ocean, ending when the fuel was exhausted. This simulation was performed just weeks before the actual flight. The finding was explosive, providing a potential modus operandi and suggesting premeditation. While the Malaysian authorities never definitively concluded that Shah was responsible, the scenario became the leading working theory for many international investigators. A carefully planned suicide by plane, where the pilot deliberately incapacitated the communication systems and steered the plane to oblivion, taking 238 lives with him. Furthermore, reports of personal turmoil in Captain Shah's life, including possible domestic issues and political disappointments, were leaked, though never definitively proven to be motivating factors. The narrative shifted from a technological failure to a psychological mystery. However, the theory is not without powerful challenges. Some aviation experts argue the simulation trace could be coincidental or misinterpreted, and crucially, there remains no definitive evidence, no suicide note, no communication, and no clear motive to confirm that the highly respected Captain Shah was the one who performed the vanishing act. The focus on the captain's shadow provided answers, but also created a haunting, deeply uncomfortable hypothesis: the cargo hold question, the lithium-ion controversy. While the pilot suicide theory dominated the public discussion, a major, unsettling alternative focused on what was in the plane's cargo hold. The possibility that the disappearance was caused by a catastrophic event originating in the belly of the plane remains a compelling, if complex, theory. The official manifest revealed that MH370 was carrying a significant amount of lithium-ion batteries in its hold, a notoriously volatile cargo that has been responsible for numerous aviation incidents due to their potential to combust spontaneously. These batteries were shipped alongside a large consignment of mangosteens, tropical fruit. The theory posits that a fire could have erupted in the cargo hold, spreading rapidly. This would explain the sudden and simultaneous disabling of the ACARs and the transponder, as the crew would have been frantically trying to fight an emergency, or the fire itself rapidly disabled the plane's electrical systems. If the cockpit quickly filled with smoke or became incapacitated by heat, the pilot, Captain Shah, might have executed the abrupt turn west, aiming for a nearby airport, possibly the Malaysian island of Pulau Langkawi, which has a long runway. However, due to the rapid decompression or smoke inhalation, the crew could have been rendered unconscious before reaching land. The plane would then have continued on an uncontrolled, programmed course until it exhausted its fuel over the southern Indian Ocean. This theory offers a less sinister, though equally tragic, explanation for the extended ghost flight. It removes the blame from the captain and shifts the focus back to regulatory failures in the safe handling of hazardous materials. However, critics point out that if the pilot was conscious long enough to perform the complicated turn, they should have had time to activate the emergency systems or communicate with ground control. The lithium-ion fire theory remains a grim possibility, but like all others lacks definitive physical proof. The ghost plane theory and oxygen deprivation. Another major line of inquiry focuses on the mechanical state of the aircraft after the initial contact loss, giving rise to the chilling ghost plane or hypoxia theory. This theory attempts to reconcile the seemingly deliberate shutdown of communication systems with the extended flight time. This scenario proposes that a sudden rapid event, such as explosive decompression or a slow systemic failure, incapacitated the cockpit crew and passengers through hypoxia, oxygen deprivation. If the main cabin pressure failed, everyone on board would have quickly lost consciousness. The deliberate turn west then would be attributed to Captain Shah's immediate, final emergency action, turning the plane toward a known safe airport. However, if he too was incapacitated by hypoxia just moments later, the plane's internal flight management system, FMS, would have taken over. The FMS would default to the last programmed waypoint, or simply maintain a programmed heading and altitude. The Boeing 777, now flying on autopilot, would have become a ghost plane, silently traversing the globe until its fuel tanks ran dry over the vast, uninhabited ocean. This theory aligns with the lack of further communication and the silent, hours-long flight path derived from the Inmarsat pings. It accounts for the lack of a distress call, as the crew was unconscious, and the eventual crash. Furthermore, the analysis of some recovered debris suggested the plane struck the water at a high velocity, supporting the idea of an uncontrolled, automated descent once the engines flamed out due to fuel starvation. The hypoxia theory is favored by some technical experts because it elegantly explains the technical data without requiring a sinister, conscious act of murder by the pilot. It paints a picture of a devastating, silent tragedy where every soul on board succumbed long before the final impact. The conspiracy theories, political sabotage, and cover-ups. In the absence of concrete wreckage and definitive answers, the MH370 disappearance became fertile ground for powerful and persistent conspiracy theories. These theories, often fueled by the public's distrust of government transparency, offered dark, alternative explanations for the Vanishing Act. One of the most persistent theories involves political sabotage or intervention. This theory often suggests that a hostile nation, or possibly even the Malaysian government itself, was involved in the plane's destruction or diversion. Proponents point to the military's delayed response and the initial lack of full data disclosure as evidence of a cover-up. The motive often revolves around the plane's cargo, whether it was the lithium batteries or something more secretive, or the high-value individuals on board. Another popular theory centers on the possibility of a remote hijacking or electronic warfare. This suggests that the Boeing 777's sophisticated systems were compromised remotely, perhaps by a foreign military power with advanced cyber capabilities, and the plane was taken over and steered to a secret location, possibly to capture specific passengers or technology. While aviation experts dismiss the technological feasibility of a full remote hijack, the idea taps into modern anxieties about surveillance and control. These theories, while lacking verifiable evidence, often thrive because they address the single biggest psychological gap in the case. How can a massive plane vanish without a trace in the modern era? The more unbelievable the official explanation, controlled suicide or hypoxia, the more compelling the conspiracy becomes. However, investigators consistently revert to the most scientifically plausible explanations, the pilot action or hypoxia, because the forensic evidence, the Inmarsat pings and debris drift analysis, firmly anchors the plane's endpoint in the remote southern Indian Ocean, far from any known geopolitical theater. Yet the deep human need for a concrete answer ensures that the dark theories will continue to circulate as long as the main fuselage remains undiscovered. The private search and the new data frontier. After the initial government-led searches ended in frustration and without success in 2017, the official investigation was largely suspended. However, the private sector and advanced data scientists refused to let the mystery die. The search was taken up by private exploration companies, most notably Ocean Infinity, which deployed state-of-the-art autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs. These AUVs were capable of mapping the seafloor much faster and more comprehensively than previous technologies, covering vast areas in record time. Ocean Infinity undertook 2 major private searches working on a no-find, no-fee basis, a testament to the high confidence in the data. Crucially, the continued failure to find the plane led to a reanalysis of the original satellite data. Independent aerospace engineers and data experts pushed for a more refined interpretation of the Inmarsat pings. They focused on subtle, previously overlooked technical details, such as the plane's final velocity and the potential influence of air density on the fuel burn rate. This new modeling suggested that the plane's final resting place might be slightly north of the original, officially mandated search area. This was a critical distinction, as the entire multi-year, multi-million-dollar search had focused on an area derived from an older, less refined analysis. The new data frontier proved that the mystery of MH370 was not just a case of searching the wrong place, but a case of potentially misinterpreting the fundamental science. The engineers and analysts who worked on these updated models believe they have narrowed the probable crash zone significantly, but without government funding or a new mandate, the seabed in this new target area remains unexplored. The enduring hope is that improved technology and refined data will eventually guide the searchers to the silent grave. The unending legacy and the search for closure. A decade after its disappearance, the mystery of MH370 remains one of the most compelling and tragic enigmas of the 21st century. The Vanishing Act did more than just consume a single plane. It exposed critical vulnerabilities in global aviation tracking and security protocols. The immediate legacy was a fundamental shift in aviation safety. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, mandated new standards for global flight tracking, requiring commercial aircraft to report their positions every 15 minutes, eventually moving toward continuous tracking to prevent a similar total loss of location data. The aerospace industry was forced to prioritize no-break communication, ensuring that a large commercial jet can never again simply disappear without a trace. For the families of the 239 people on board, the decade has been an agonizing cycle of false hope, conspiracy theories, and legal battles. For them, the enduring mystery is compounded by the lack of a final resting place which prevents proper closure and mourning. Their persistent pressure remains the primary driving force behind renewed searches and continued data analysis. The ultimate solution to the MH370 mystery is now widely believed to rest on one simple factor: funding. Experts agree that based on the refined data and debris drift analysis, the plane's wreckage is almost certainly confined to a definable area of the southern Indian Ocean. The failure to find it is a reflection of the cost and immense technical challenge of searching one of the world's least mapped regions, rather than a failure of physics. The story of Flight 370 is a haunting testament to the power of the ocean to consume and conceal, and the enduring human need to confront the unknown. Until the main wreckage is found, revealing the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder. The question of why the plane vanished, whether by human design, catastrophic failure, or something darker, will remain the aviation world's most profound and silent challenge.